pleased to be here today at one of my favorite restaurants, at Familia, here in Cabbagetown in Toronto, with Tanya, who's the restaurateur and also one of my favorite restaurateurs. I'm really pleased to be able to come to talk about our wage subsidy today. Our announcement that we're going to extend that wage subsidy is important for people across the country and for businesses, and I'm offered the opportunity today to talk about those details is, I know, important for so many people. The last few months have been particularly challenging for Canadians. Challenging for people who've lost their jobs, challenging obviously for businesses trying to figure out how to keep their people employed, keep their businesses afloat. We've worked hard to develop programs at scale and with speed to deliver for people, to make sure that people have the resources they need when in many cases they were out of work or the businesses weren't actually operating. I'm really pleased with the ability we've shown to move quickly and to deliver that support through numerous programs. As we've gone along, we've always tried to improve those programs when we need to and change them as necessary, which is what the subject of today is about. We've also made some mistakes. I do want to talk about one mistake in particular. You probably heard about the Canada Service student grants that we put in place over the last few weeks and the administration of that program. We chose the WE organization to administer it, and there's been questions on that. There have been specific questions about my involvement with the organization, and in particular there were some questions about one of my daughters who works in an unrelated area in an administrative capacity at the WE organization. So I want to say that I did not recuse myself from the deliberations on the choice of administrator, and in hindsight I should have. I made a mistake. I regret and I apologize sincerely for having made that mistake. I think it's made our ability to deliver on this program more challenging. We know there are many students that are looking to find jobs, to get opportunities this summer, and we've not been able to deliver as quickly as we should have. So I sincerely regret for my error in that regard. Pendant les derniers 3-4 mois, nous avons eu une situation très difficile pour les Canadiens et les Canadiennes et pour les organisations à travers notre pays. Bien sûr, pendant la pandémie, c'était difficile d'assurer que les gens ont assez d'argent pour eux et leurs familles. Nous avons fait beaucoup. Nous avons fait des programmes avec une rapidité et une efficacité qui étaient très importantes pour améliorer la situation dans notre pays. Nous avons fait beaucoup de choses très importantes. Bien sûr, nous avons toujours essayé d'améliorer nos programmes quand c'était nécessaire. Ça, c'est le sujet d'aujourd'hui avec les changements dans la subvention salariale. Mais aussi, nous avons fait des erreurs. Et une erreur, je vais parler du sujet d'aujourd'hui. Comme vous savez, avec le bourse canadienne pour les bénévoles étudiants, nous avons choisi l'organisation unie. Et il y a des questions au sujet de mes relations avec l'organisation et en particulier le sujet d'une de mes filles qui travaille pour l'organisation dans une capacité administrative. Ce que je peux dire, j'ai fait une erreur. Je ne me récusais pas pour les délibérations au sujet de l'administration de programme et je tiens à m'excuser pour ma part. Je sais que c'était une erreur et c'était aussi difficile parce que de cette façon, c'est plus difficile à délivrer pour les étudiants à travers le pays. Donc, vraiment, je tiens à m'excuser pour ma part. Ce que je vais dire, c'est très important de considérer comment nous pouvons améliorer la situation maintenant. I know that right now we're talking about how we can improve the situation for Canadians and for businesses, and that's why I'm so pleased to be talking about the wage subsidy extension. Over the last couple of months, we've talked to experts and business leaders and labor leaders about how we could make sure that the wage subsidy would give us the ability to allow businesses to safely restart the economy, to hire back employees, to protect the employees they already have. They gave us some good advice, and we've now got to a stage where we're proposing some important changes in this program. So first, we're proposing to extend this program through until December 19th. What we're announcing today is the changes that we made up till the end of November, until November 21st. Those changes will be quite important because they'll give businesses the ability to know that they have the wage subsidy for longer. And so for businesses like Tanya's business here, she'll have confidence that this wage subsidy will be around right through until that time period, so she knows that she has the ability to hire back people to make her business work even in a time of particular challenge. So that extension and duration is important. Secondly, we know that it's also critical that we have the businesses able to continue to hire people even as they get into the restart. And we know that the requirement that businesses have a 30% reduction in revenue is not helpful in that regard. So what we're saying is that businesses will get the wage subsidy if they've had any reduction in revenue. So it's going to go all the way down to businesses that even have a small amount of revenue reduction. They'll get the subsidy as well. And it will be in proportion to the amount of the revenue reduction that they will get a subsidy. So it broadens the number of organizations, helps them to safely restart, to get their employees back at a time where their revenues are reduced. And third, we've tailored the program so that it helps those organizations that are particularly hard hit. So for organizations with over a 50% reduction in revenue over the last few months, they'll actually get a top-up. They'll get up to 25% additional subsidy so that they can deal with this really challenging time for their businesses. What that means for businesses, those that were already in the program that have that 30% revenue decline, that'll continue to be the case for July and August. For those businesses, as I said, that are particularly hard hit, it will be even more. It will go up to 85% wage subsidy, or $960 per person. For those businesses that are less hard hit, but still hit, they'll be able to get into the program. The program will continue, but as we restart, the program will be tailored to help businesses appropriately in that restart. Ce que je voudrais dire pour nos changements dans notre programme de subvention de salaire réel, nous avons fait des changements avec l'avis des autres, des leaders des affaires, des leaders dans l'économie, pour faire des améliorations dans le programme. Au début, je voudrais dire, nous avons décidé, nous proposons d'avoir une approche qui va continuer jusqu'à la fin de l'année, mais on annonce aujourd'hui jusqu'à la fin novembre le programme. Et ça veut dire qu'il n'y a plus d'assurance pour les employeurs qui vont avoir accès aux subventions salariales pour eux pour longtemps. Donc ça, c'est très important pour l'assurance, la confiance dans notre économie. Deuxièmement, nous avons changé les critères. Ça veut dire que s'il y a une diminution de revenus de moins de 30%, les organisations sont encore, on a encore la possibilité d'avoir la subvention salariale. Ça veut dire qu'il y a une incentive de continuer d'avoir un niveau de croissance, mais en même temps de réengager leurs employés. Et finalement, nous avons changé le programme pour les organisations avec une situation plus difficile. 50% et plus de revenus moins que l'année avant. Ils vont avoir une subvention salariale de jusqu'à 85% pour les prochains 2 mois. Une initiative plus importante pour eux. Ça va aider d'avoir un réengagement de leurs employés et une possibilité de relance sécuritaire. So this is an important set of changes. We think it will help us with the safe restart of our economy. We think that it's critically important that we work together with the other parties in Parliament, put out legislation to them today so they can see the legislation. We're going to work together to move forward on this. We know that we're all in this pandemic together, that the only way we can safely restart is if we think about how businesses, how people can do the right things, that we can work together to have a healthy situation, which means that our economy can get back up and running. And the wage subsidy will be, we think, a very important part in that safe restart of our economy, getting people back to work and ensuring that we have the opportunities for tomorrow that we all need. So thank you very much, and I'm happy to take questions now.
You're going to start off in the room, and we'll start off with Susan over here.
Hi. A lot of people, a lot of businesses have been sort of saying that 30% threshold was too stringent from the beginning. And I'm sure many businesses will be happy to see these changes, but it's the middle of July. A number of businesses have had to close their doors. A lot of Canadians have lost their jobs. Is this announcement, too late? Why are the changes being made now when people have been calling for these changes for a long time now?
Well, thanks for the question. We think it's particularly important that we change these programs as rapidly as we can to make them work for a broader cross-section of businesses. So you're right. There are businesses who've been telling us that this change is important. That's why we're putting it in place for the month of July. So it's for the month of July as well for those employers. Obviously, businesses will be using other programs. I know Tanya has not only been using the wage subsidy here at this restaurant, but also the rent program. So there are multiple ways that we're trying to help businesses. We think this one is going to be absolutely critical. We think it's important to get going on it. The reason we're doing it today is so that we can get it out there so more businesses can use it.
And I have just a call on behalf of my colleague Kevin Gallagher. What did you know, this is transitioning to Minister Morneau, what did you know about finance officials recommending leave for the Student Service Grant Contribution Agreement? Were you involved with discussions before the agreement was presented to Cabinet?
Well, ultimately, the recommendation on this program came from the public service. But we were clearly all working very hard. So the public service, multiple departments were working together to try and figure out not only the best policy, but the best way to deliver that policy. And it was an all hands on deck moment. So, we got from them their recommendation that considered all the work they did, the analysis they did, and that was important in our final deliberation.
We're going to take another question here. We have CBC next week.
Hi there. Rachel Wernick said yesterday it was finance officials who suggested reaching out to Lee Cherry as her department set to work on the Canada Student Service Grant. Why was your department suggesting we as a potential partner for this contribution?
Well, again, the recommendation came to me from the public service. I would expect that officials from multiple departments, including finance, would always be working together on trying to find the best way to deliver on something. We were trying and are continuing to try to make sure that we deliver these programs as rapidly as we can to get the support to people that they need. And people were working hard to make sure that we did that. So I would expect that people should work together in delivering that advice and coming to those recommendations. I think that's what I heard yesterday.
Are you concerned we tried to buy political influence?
No, what I've seen is a clear understanding that in order to deliver at a pace that we had to deliver, we always have to remember we're in the midst of a pandemic. So the question that came to me just a minute ago was people worried about getting support as rapidly as possible. That's been on all of our minds all the way through this. So the ability not only to come up with the right approach, but to deliver it is critically important. And I know that the public service was considering both those two issues as they brought forward the recommendation.
Thank you. Operator, we are close. Sorry, we've got one more here. We've got Ming Pao, sir, just the night together.
Okay, my question is, why in the first place the business seems actually reluctant to apply for this wage subsidy?
I think we've seen that a very large number of businesses have taken up the wage subsidy. We now have about 1 in 4 private sector workers that are actually on the wage subsidy, so that's important. We do think that this extension, this will give confidence to people to apply for the wage subsidies. It'll be there for longer. And they know that it will support them to rehire their employees. So we think that it's particularly important as we restart the economy that we get these announcements out.
Operator, we are going to move to the telephone line now. If you can please introduce the first customer.
Once again, please press star 1 if you have a question. De nouveau, n'hésitez pas à appuyer sur l'étoile 1 pour toute question. And please limit yourself to one question and one follow-up question. Merci de vous limiter à une question et une question de suivi. The first question is from Rosa Saba from Toronto Star. La première question est de Rosa Saba de Toronto Star. Please go ahead. La parole est à vous.
Hi, Minister. You're obviously familiar with how corporate boards work and how closely rules around real or perceived conflict of interest are followed. I know you said it was a mistake, but why did your daughter's employment with me not raise red flags for you immediately? And did other ministers or officials warn you of potential conflicts of interest?
Well, thank you. Again, we were working to make sure that we could deliver for Canadians at a rapid pace. I think that's the right approach here. I absolutely can see that I should have recused myself, that there was a perception that was real, and that I needed to deal with that. I didn't do it, so I can just say that I have to apologize, and I sincerely apologize for not having recused myself. It's made this discussion more difficult, and it certainly would be something I could change if I went back. I would change it because I think that would have been the right course of action.
Thanks.
Is there a follow-up, or we'll go to the next question? Okay, next question, operator.
I'm sorry. The next question is from Louis Blouin from Radio-Canada. La prochaine question est de Louis Blouin de Radio-Canada. Please go ahead, la parole est à vous.
Bonjour, M. Morneau. À propos de l'annonce d'aujourd'hui, il y a beaucoup de gens d'affaires qui disent que ce programme de subvention salariale n'est pas utile tant que la PCU, la prestation canadienne d'urgence, est encore en place. Alors la question, est-ce que la prestation canadienne d'urgence sera prolongée au-delà de la fin août? Est-ce que vous avez pris une décision à propos de ça?
Merci. C'est une bonne question parce que nous savons que la prestation canadienne d'urgence est très importante, mais aussi c'est important de considérer les programmes ensemble. Donc notre approche est d'avoir l'amélioration de la subvention salariale, ça c'est très important. Et nous croyons que de cette façon, on va avoir plus des employeurs, plus des employés qui vont être dans une meilleure position. Mais en même temps, on va considérer le recommencement de notre système d'assurance d'emploi. Ça va être le début septembre. Et bien sûr, ça doit continuer avec la prestation canadienne d'urgence. Nous sommes en train de considérer les changements pour assurer que nous pouvons protéger les gens qui sont dans une situation difficile, et ça c'est notre approche. Donc on va considérer les trois programmes ensemble, et bien sûr ça c'est la bonne approche, mais nous n'avons pas encore considéré exactement comment ça va fonctionner.
Donc je comprends bien, la décision n'est pas prise. Deuxième question, pourquoi vous n'avez pas maintenu le niveau à 75% de la subvention jusqu'en novembre? Est-ce que vous jugez que ça vous aurait coûté trop cher de continuer à ce niveau-là jusqu'en novembre?
C'est pas vraiment la bonne raison. La raison que nous avons décidé de notre approche est d'avoir plus de soutien pour les entreprises avec un problème très difficile, une diminution de 50% de plus pendant les prochains 2 mois. Mais après, avec la relance sécuritaire, nous pensons qu'on va être dans une meilleure position. Ça veut dire que le niveau de subvention salariale va diminuer, la nécessité va diminuer, et ça c'est très important. Donc on a trouvé une approche vraiment importante pour le niveau de confiance. C'est comme la grande majorité des autres pays dans le monde, mais notre approche est un peu plus généreuse des autres pays avec une extension jusqu'à la fin de l'année. Et bien sûr, ça doit être en considération de le relancement de notre économie.
Thank you. Operator, next question.
Thank you. The next question is from Mourad Hemadi from The Logic. La prochaine question est de Mourad Hemadi de Logic. Please go ahead. La parole est à vous.
Hi, Minister. Last month, the Council of Community Innovators had asked that the government reconsider the way that the revenue decline for the wage subsidy program is calculated, specifically that companies be able to substitute other kinds of business activities like billable hours and receivables, unit gross bookings, or subscription revenue when they calculate their decline, because the straight monthly income statement system doesn't work for some kinds of particularly tech companies. Is that something that you are doing today, or are you rejecting that recommendation?
Well, thanks for the question. We appreciate that there's always going to be things that we need to look at in these programs to make sure that they're working. We've tried to come up with an approach that's going to work for the overwhelming majority of businesses, and that was important. We will continue to think about things that we need to look at. One important change we made, we had some consideration around how we could help businesses that had amalgamated with another business over the course of the last year, and so couldn't show the revenue decline. We've come up with an approach to change that, so that's an important change that I think will be important for some businesses. But we recognize that dealing with these programs in a pandemic, we need to get at-scale programs out that can be dealt with across the country, and that's the approach we've taken on this, which I know will help many, many more businesses. It'll help many more businesses that have had a smaller decline than 30% in revenue, or businesses that might have had a 40% decline, but they're back in business and they have a 25% decline, so they can still get their wage subsidy, which will mean that they'll be able to hire people back. Those are the kinds of things we were thinking about today.
Another follow.
Go ahead.
As a follow-up, some of the programs that you have implemented for companies that don't qualify for CEWS, such as the Regional Recovery Program or IRAP's IAP program, applicants have said that those programs are taking a very long time to respond to applications, more than 2 months in some instances, and therefore that they're not getting the relief that they require right now. Are you concerned that businesses are going to go under because they can't get money that they should qualify for?
I think that's an important question. We are working hard to make sure that the administration of these programs happens as rapidly as possible. It has been the case throughout this pandemic that we've had to find a new way to deliver. So the SERB benefit, we had to use the CRA system because we didn't have another way to deliver it. And that was a brand new application that worked, that got people money quickly and protected them and their families when they didn't have any funds. So we will continue every day to think about how we can make this program, any program, work more rapidly. That's certainly the case with the wage subsidy, but with other programs like the ones you've identified, we're trying to make them as efficiently as possible. But we always do need to have appropriate criteria in place so that we deliver the support for the people who need it, and that is important in a time of crisis.
Roger, we'll go to the next question in line.
Thank you. The next question is from Bill Curry from the Globe and Mail. La prochaine question est de Bill Curry de Globe and Mail. Please go ahead. La parole est à vous.
Hi, Minister. To go back to the WE issue from the committee yesterday, was your office or department in communication with WE before the announcement in April? And what was the nature of those discussions, as it were?
I think what we heard yesterday from the officials was that they were working to make sure that they could find a way to create the policy and to deliver on behalf of students. I think departments were working together. I don't have any direct ability to answer that question, but I know that departments would work together. That's what they should be doing in trying to come up with these recommendations, which they did, and those recommendations were presented to me and my colleagues for final conclusion.
And also in the hearings, your cabinet colleague, Minister Chagger, had made reference to the cabinet having some tough decisions and discussions and debates about this program, but it wasn't particularly clear. So can you clear that up? Were you involved in any discussions about potential conflicts involving Mr. Trudeau or yourself? Did that come up, and was it decided that it wasn't a threshold that warranted recusal? So did this come up at all during the time of the program being created?
Well, obviously I can't speak about cabinet discussions which are confidential. I can say again that I did not recuse myself, and I think that that was a mistake of judgment on my part. I think that it would have made it much better for our deliberations had I recused myself, given the perception of conflict that is legitimate. And I apologize for doing that. I think it's important that we recognize that was a mistake. I think it's important for me that I move on to make sure that we keep trying to support Canadians at a time where they really need support, including students, but all Canadians.
Thank you. Operator, we'll go to the next question now.
Thank you. The next question is from Mélanie Marquis from La Presse. La prochaine question est de Mélanie Marquis de La Presse. Please go ahead. La parole est à vous.
Merci. Bonjour, M. Morneau. Allez-vous présenter cette mesure législative mercredi prochain lors de la séance en Chambre? Et puis, si j'ai bien compris, vous avez déjà partagé l'ébauche de projet de loi avec les partis d'opposition. Comment ont-ils réagi? Puis comment est-ce que vous pouvez vous assurer que ça va passer? Parce que en ce moment, parce que la dernière fois, vous n'aviez pas réussi à faire passer la mesure sur l'aide aux personnes vivant avec un handicap. Et là, l'opposition est encore plus fâchée contre vous à cause de l'affaire du karaoké. Donc, comment est-ce que vous allez réussir à le faire adopter ce projet-là?
C'est une bonne question. Nous avons eu des discussions avec les autres partis, bien sûr. Il y a des choses importantes. Nous devons travailler ensemble pour améliorer la situation des Canadiens et Canadiennes. Je suis assuré que les autres partis vont considérer les changements comme très importants. Mais bien sûr, il y a des discussions en ce moment. Nous voulons avoir la législation, mais jusqu'à maintenant, nous n'avons pas fait la décision finale avec les discussions avec les autres partis.
En suivi, juste vous préciser que vous allez bel et bien déposer ça mercredi. Puis sur un autre sujet, ma question de suivi, est-ce que vous accepteriez, M. Morneau, de comparaître au comité permanent des finances comme vous avez reçu l'invitation de le faire?
Je ne peux pas dire si c'est mercredi. Il y a encore des discussions. Moi, je vais, bien sûr, je vais toujours coopérer avec le comité des finances et je vais être avec eux pour une discussion. Je ne sais pas encore la date, mais ça, c'est quelque chose que je vais faire.
Operator, we're going to take 2 more questions.
Perfect, thank you. The next question is from Kate Orlongaro from Bloomberg. La prochaine question est de Kate Orlongaro from Bloomberg. La parole est à vous. Please go ahead.
Hi, Mr. Morneau. I have a question regarding fiscal anchors. So with the debt to GDP ratio taking a COVID-19 hit and the country's AAA rating no longer assured, the PBO is suggesting the Canadian fiscal shift is adrift without an anchor. Will you be seizing on a new one anytime soon?
Well, thanks for the question. We recognize that we've taken a real shock to our system. Clearly, our net debt to GDP has increased. We think that this was absolutely the right thing to do in the context of the pandemic. We needed to invest in Canadians, but also to make sure that our economy would be there for the long term. We continue to look very favorable compared to other G7 countries. I think we will likely continue to be the G7 country with the lowest net debt to GDP. And I appreciate your question around a fiscal anchor or fiscal approach. That's going to be an important consideration for us as we move forward, and something that we will certainly be deliberating on over the course of the summer and coming back in the fall to talk about.
Okay, operator, next question, please. This will be the last question.
The next question is from Émilie Bergeron from Agence QMI. The next question is from Émilie Bergeron from Agence QMI. Please go ahead. La parole est à vous.
Bonjour, M. Morneau. Sur cette question qui vous a déjà été posée un petit peu plus tôt, acceptez-vous de comparaître devant le commissaire à l'éthique? On veut une réponse claire. On comprend que vous êtes en train de regarder ce que vous allez faire, mais c'est pas la première fois que vous êtes visé par une enquête du commissaire à l'éthique. Pouvez-vous prendre un engagement ferme aujourd'hui?
Je crois que j'ai une demande de le comité des finances pour une présentation. Et bien sûr, je vais être là. On doit considérer la date, mais je ne sais pas encore la date, mais je vais coopérer comme j'ai toujours essayé de faire. Donc ça va être important.
OK, donc je comprends que vous allez être là devant le comité des finances, vous le confirmez aujourd'hui et vous vous engagez à coopérer avec le commissaire à l'éthique. Sur la subvention salariale, quels éléments dans ce que vous annoncez aujourd'hui spécifiquement doivent passer par le biais d'un projet de loi pour être adoptés? Par exemple, le seuil de 30% et le fait que de nouvelles entreprises pourraient y avoir accès
c'était, par exemple, une baisse de 29 ou 28% ou moins encore, est-ce qu'elles vont pouvoir y avoir accès et quand?
Notre approche, nous proposons d'avoir les changements qui vont commencer le mois de juillet. Donc, la législation va considérer notre approche, donc nos propositions. Et à mon avis, c'est très important de travailler avec les autres parties pour assurer que nous pouvons commencer l'amélioration de la subvention salariale dès que le début de juillet. Donc ça, c'est important. De cette façon, on va avoir plus des entreprises qui peuvent utiliser la subvention salariale. On va avoir une situation où les entreprises qui sont dans une situation plus difficile peuvent avoir plus de subventions. Et finalement, de cette façon, on va avoir une confiance et assurance pour l'avenir. Et de cette façon, les entreprises, les organisations vont considérer de réengager leurs employés dans les prochains jours et semaines. Ça, c'est très important pour la relance sécuritaire de notre économie. Donc, merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. And I really appreciate people being here with us today on this beautiful day in Toronto. Thank you. Thank you. Now you see the real life.